Have you ever heard of a little game called Kingsfield? No? Well, go check it out now then, especially if you like the Dark Souls series of games. So, Kingsfield was this little gem of a series back in the early days of PlayStation. At that point, FromSoft was still figuring out what their game design identity and methodology would become, and so some of the earlier projects they worked on were, well, unique. Kingsfield is no exception. This isn't a Kingsfield review, no. This is my game based on the Kingsfield design and methodology in terms of world building, lore and combat. Maybe even music, we shall see, or hear. This is Kingsfield Clone. I haven't decided on a name yet. I don't do a lot of devlogs for my games. I'm more of a nomad style developer. I get an idea, formulate some sort of plan, and start making a game. Then, I stop the development after a week or so and move on to the next idea. Not this time, not Kingsfield. So, why are these games so unique and special? Why do they have such a cult following? I believe the answer lies in the feeling you get when you play them. These games weren't especially good in terms of any of their systems at the time, and yet they have, even now, a massive following. Now, perhaps the onset of the Souls-like era has helped that cause, but there is more to it. First and foremost, that's what I aim to replicate in my game. The feel of the dungeon you find yourself in, the mystery, the horror, but most of all, the curiosity. Of course, my game will have its own identity and will not be tied to the Kingsfield series in any way. But spiritually, I plan to pay homage to it. I plan to make the game very unique in visuals, gameplay and audio. Now, I don't plan to make the world's longest or best game here. I have been an indie developer long enough to know that things don't work out that way, especially not for a single developer. Yet, I do plan on making it stand out. So first off, my game will not be the same as the Kingsfield series of games. I have a lot of my own established systems and gameplay methodologies that I plan to reuse in this title. These boil down to gameplay and interface systems mostly. It will still be my game, with its own identity. I believe in drawing inspiration, I do not believe in copying. Let's get to the actual game then. Please note that these devlogs will not be particularly structured, but more flowing and babbly. First of all, the lore and the story. Now, I can't get into much detail here, as to not spoil any surprises to those that will play the game. But I will say this, the game is set in the universe of Uliador, and will be in the same lore set as one of my other games. That is Rattle, Hell Unleashed. Many of you won't have played that game, so I'll give you a quick summary. In that title, you play as the Death Rattle, which is a chosen character that has been given magical abilities and weaponry to fight the hordes of the apocalypse. God has given the player powers to use against those enemies, and the game has strong religious lore tied to the made-up religion of the Uliador universe. The Dev Rattle is born because God looks back on the rupture with guild and decides to create a hero for those left in hell on earth. The Death Rattle series of games is still ongoing. While this title will share a universe and that same God with the Death Rattle game, it will be set in an entirely different timeline, and also in dungeons, not on the Uliador surface. The Death Rattle will be cast alive far after this game's events. Lore for the game hasn't been fleshed out, but I have a lot of ideas. Of course, the game will be played in dungeons, and so will have a very condensed and concentrated lore, tied to the areas the game is set in. Secondly, my plans for combat, inventory, and traversal. I have great admiration for trade-off systems. If you want to have something powerful, you need to give up something else for that powerful item. I plan on making this principle a big part of my game design philosophy. This will show instantly in the way I have set up initial ideas for the weapon and equipment systems. Any first-person view has two hands. This is fact. I plan on making use of those two hands in quite a unique way. In the game, the player will have an equipment and a weapon set, one for each hand. On the left, you have your equipment. This will be, as seen in the recorded video, some things that are useful to the player but aren't combat related in terms of offense. So in this instance, the player has equipped a lantern to light his way. The lantern can be switched on or off, in this case as is signified by the changing of materials on the lantern. Later on, the player will be able to switch between different items on this hand, including a shield. On the right side, the player has a sword. This is just a basic sword, and so far I have programmed a basic attack system where the player can attack these little spheres strewn about the level. The player will be able to equip a variety of weapon types for melee. Ranged combat is a big possibility, but I haven't given much thought to it yet. Here are some types of combat being considered. Number 1, melee. Number 2, ranged. Number 3, grenades. Number 4, generic magic, offensive. Number 5, necromancy. This depends on the law. Those are the options I'm currently considering. Much of it depends on the lore and world building that will be done in the following weeks. Weapons and shields will have a durability value and will be degraded over time and use. As you have become accustomed to, these will be repairable. I haven't decided if I will add blacksmiths to the world or rather blacksmith stations for the player to make use of. This will be lore dependent. For my next item, I think many of you won't like my plans as it goes against a very established system in video game design. The player will have an inventory, yes, but a very limited one. You can carry one sword or axe or spear or whatever you like and one shield, that's it. I have never liked how for some reason players can carry 12 swords just because there's inventory space. It's my game, so suck it. Just kidding, please don't leave. But yeah, I plan on making a limited inventory. Discarded items will be destroyable though, so you'll be able to get resources from old items, for example, wood or scrap. I plan on making crafting systems for potions and such, so collecting items for those systems will tie into the inventory. Things like picking garlic and mixing it with holy water to drink to protect from vampire bites, that kind of stuff. So, those are my initial plans for combat. In terms of movement, I plan on having a slow and deliberate playstyle, much like the Kingsfield games had. Of course, you'll play with mouse and keyboard so the camera will handle a lot better. I want movement and combat to be methodical and deliberate, not fast and weightless. I want the player to feel the weight of his sword as he tries to swing at enemies, and the encumbrance of his heavy shield as he tries to block oncoming attacks. In terms of stamina, there will be a stamina system, but it will be basic and easy to navigate. Attacking and blocking takes stamina, and resting restores it. Easy. Let's move on to music. My brother Alwyn will most likely do the music and audio for the title. He's a very talented musician. You'll find his details in the video description. He did all the music for Rattle, Hell Unleashed, and as I'm sure you'll agree, it's epic. Anyway, I plan to make the music fit the world well. I plan on having eerie and melodramatic numbers that play like a symphony to the darkness, something like Castlevania in terms of style. Working on this is far off right now, but that's where my head is at. Lastly, let's discuss the visual art style and aesthetic of the game. PlayStation 1 and 2 era games had a certain charm to them. Because of system limitations, creators had to get very creative about how they set up levels and systems to make sure everything ran smoothly. I believe these limitations forced some of the best aesthetics and game feel situations ever experienced. There was just a certain charm to games at the time, something that has mostly disappeared in modern gaming. Everything just looks the same now. I aspire to harken back to a time where the visuals played a massive role in the experience. How do I plan to do this, you ask? Shaders. Old stylized shaders. The view distance will be quite close and the aesthetic will, for the most part, be dark and gloomy. I do also use some modern techniques in the project, like atmospheric lighting systems. I plan to find the perfect balance between the old and the new to create a really aesthetically unique and distinctive game. While the look of my game is far from complete, I think you'll agree that it already has a unique charm to it. Right now, I've just created a small dungeon-like level for some testing. I've started filling it with random props, most of which are not even textured yet. But it's just for testing at the moment. Being a solo developer on the project will not only do the game and level design, programming and interface, but also all of the art. This means I will do modeling, UV unwrapping, rigging, texturing and animation. I don't know how much you know about 3D work, but this will be a lot of work and a big time investment. The things we do for passion. I plan on creating a unique and mysterious aesthetic for the game that will pull you in and keep you enthralled in the realm of Uliador. Well, under it anyway. So, those are the systems I'll talk about for today. For the rest, it will come in the future. Systems like enemy design, interface design, details about level design, and any other elements left out here will be discussed in future logs. Another big talking point in the future will be RPG elements and systems tied to that, such as resistances, curses, and buffs. The player, character, setup, and statistics will also be discussed. That will probably get a video of its own. There is much deliberation to be done here. Something that I'll talk about more later on, but just to mention here, I will definitely be incorporating a lot of secret areas and invisible doors into the project. There will be lots to find. So, that's it for this first development log. What I'm trying to create here will be an homage to those old games we all grew up and loved so much. I will create something that is set in my own universe, yet mirrors those ancient underground areas we all miss exploring. I will take elements from many of those old games I used to play as a kid, even ones from different genres. Here is a list of games I plan on using as inspiration. Number 1, the Kingsfield series. Number 2, the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Number 3, Tsar, the Burden of the Crown. What a gem. Number 4, Dungeon Siege. Number 5, Titan's Quest. These are some of my favorite childhood games, and I plan on taking something from each of them. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you. Please like the video so that it can get some traction. I might seek funding for the project in the future, and for that it will need to have some weight behind it. Also, subscribe to the channel so that you'll see the next logs. I can't tell you how many times I've checked out a project and not subbed to the channel and then never saw it again. Lost in the YouTube void, like a turd down the drain. Don't make my game a turd. Anyway, enough rambling. Thank you for watching. I hope this project is something you can get excited about and will follow along as I develop it. I plan on making it as special as I can. Stick with me. Happy gaming.